Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Something that not everybody wants to talk about, but it's important and impactful and can really make things a lot easier. It's a fact of life. And I'm talking about funerals, but specifically today, we're going to talk about pre-planning your funeral. A lot of advantages in doing that. And I've called upon an expert to take care of that. She has two locations in New Jersey of the Oliverie Funeral Home, and she's Jerry Oliverie, and she joins us here on the program again today. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Glad to be here today.
Yeah, it's good to have you back here, and something that I'm sure you hear this often, but many people just don't want to talk about funerals and just don't want to get into the detail of everything. But it is a fact of life. It's eventually going to affect all of us
Correct.
personally or just in our family. And pre-planning a funeral can really make a big difference in terms of the stress, the emotion, honoring a loved one's wishes, the way they would like things to be handled. There's a thing called the right of disposition. What exactly is that?
So the right of disposition is really important because sometimes people think they can be in charge of the funeral over another, but they can't. So first more is always the spouse. They're always number one. And then adult children, 18 or older, if the spouse is deceased or divorced. And then if the adult children, which does happen every now and then, they die, that leaves the grandchildren 18 or over in charge. And then if there's none of that, then the parents are in charge sometimes because we have a young person, right? And then siblings or the nieces and nephews to those siblings are then in charge. And the reason is why you have to have the right of disposition in order is because many spouses have second marriages. So the adult children think, well, that's my dad, so I'm in charge. Whereas that second wife, they don't think has a right. They're like, no, 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 they just got married for companionship. Not true. They could get married on their deathbed if a priest says they're appropriate and he's willing to sign a marriage certificate and so is a witness, they're married, whether it's minutes, hours, or 10 years. That spouse is in charge.
Wow. Is that the same thing as a funeral agent, or a funeral agent is something different?
So a funeral agent doesn't even have to be related. It could be a relationship or it could be a non-relationship. But once a funeral agent is assigned with those words exact, not, I leave in charge this funeral to do my funeral in my will, doesn't count. If you have a funeral agent with the right documentation, they're in charge over everyone, spouse, children, anybody. They're in charge. That's it. They're not in charge of anything else but the funeral. They're not on the will. They're not, POA. They're not, it's just funeral, period.
So I know there's a difference, but I'm just going to use this as an example. But you have an executor of a will. Is that kind of the same thing as a funeral agent when it comes to funerals?
No. So the will is read 10 days after death and is really only for the disposition of assets. We don't know if that will is even the last will or it's going to be contested. So we have nothing to do with that will. We either have a funeral agent or a right of disposition, and then we continue with the funeral from there on. And how payment will take place depends on who is, doing the disposition. Do they have life insurance? Do they want to use a credit card? Do they want to use a check? Do they want to use cash? Nothing to do with the will at all or their assets.
Okay. So a funeral agent, how is one assigned?
So we have special documentation that the state of New Jersey provides, and we fill it out and have it notarized. And then the agent just has to agree to it and sign it, and the person who is appointing the agent has to sign it. And it's like 3 pages. It's not really difficult or language that anyone can understand. It's very matter of fact, so anyone can understand it, and we keep it in the file.
And is that the funeral agent? Are they the person that makes sure that things are taken care of according to the wishes of the person that assigned them?
Right. So it could be two ways. It could be I'm the funeral agent and I'm going to make these decisions today. Or it could be we have pre-arrangements and the funeral agent is going to make sure they're followed through.
Hmm.
So you can pre-plan everything and prepay and still have a funeral agent just make sure it follows through, which is good for also, children and stuff that don't always speak. They live in different states. They may get along, they may not get along, but at least those directions will be followed through if you make your funeral arrangements, right?
I want to get to the benefits of pre-planning in just a moment, but while we talked about wills, this term comes up quite often, I'm sure. Power of attorney. How does that happen when somebody passes away? What are the rights of the power of attorney?
So power of attorney has all the rights to do medical, estate planning, selling real estate. They could do all of that, moving money in the bank until the person dies, and then it's useless. The moment the person dies, you're not in charge anymore. It goes to right of disposition again. That's it. Because sometimes children live in the same state or with the parent, and other children don't. So it's more convenient to have the POA with the parent. But that doesn't mean stuff didn't happen. So sometimes money's taken, it's moved or whatever. That's between them. We can't get involved. And unfortunately, it ends to stop it right there. So they don't run away with all the money and stuff like that from somewhere else, right?
Wow. Wow. I'm sure you've been in some pretty challenging positions given what you do, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, I've sat across quite a few people that have to explain this to. Like last week, I had a family and second marriage, married 24 years. This is not, but it was a mixed marriage. We had two different religions. So the daughter's calling and she's saying, I'm in charge. It's my dad. I'm like, sorry, the wife's in charge. She doesn't understand our religion. We can't have her do it. He chose to have a mixed marriage for 24 years. There must be something they understood between each other. So I said, she's following the rules of your religion, and I'm helping her because I know the rules of the religion, and she's willing to comply. I said, but I can't take direction from you. And she's like, well, I have the will. It says I'm in charge. I said, it says you're in charge of the funeral. It doesn't say you're funeral agent. I said, it has to be specific. I said, so I will take my directions from her, but understand anything you would like to tell me and relate to me, I will relate to her so that I'm a medium, and in between, and it comes a little smoother. I said, but we'll adhere to the religion, that she's willing to do that, but she's not willing to hear you bark at her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How about, okay, let's go with a scenario. Let's say uh, an individual's spouse has passed away. Now it falls on the children, correct?
Right.
Okay. Got three kids. One of them is on board for whatever the plans are. The other two aren't. Then what?
Majority rules.
Wow. Hmm.
Majority rules. Like even if somebody wants to cremate, two out of the three children or majority, if there's only two, then both have to sign. There's no halves, right? So majority of the children have to sign and agree to the cremation or whatever type of funeral they want. They have to agree. I have to get those things, especially with a cremation, because you cannot undo it. You can't unring the bell, right?
Right.
Can't undo it.
Wow.
So unless you want to end up
Interesting.
in court,
Yep.
you have to have the majority.
So that's what we got, deep into the legal side of things here. Let's even go before that. The benefits of pre-planning, what are they?
So the benefits of pre-planning is a couple of things. Well, a lot of things. So if you pre-plan and it's in writing, most people will follow that. They'll say, well, mom or dad wrote this down. This is what they wanted. So now if you got that one dissenting child, they'll go, but this is what they wrote. Why are you dissenting what they chose? Let them have what they want. And then if you prepay, then you're freezing the price with the interest or dividends that are growing to go towards the funeral expenses that went up. Therefore, any balance will be discounted, right? So that's the benefit, because children go to college, they get their jobs wherever those colleges or their spouses end up being from. They don't live in the same state anymore. They're, years ago you lived down the block, you all lived in the same neighborhood, maybe you lived together. That doesn't happen anymore. So if it's all prepaid and pre-planned, then I'm not asking you for money and everybody's going, we don't know how we're going to pay for this. We don't have access to mom's money until we do the estate. I don't wait for your estate. That could take 2 years, 3 years if you're contesting it. Somebody has to pay me, and you can submit the bill to the estate, and then you can get paid. So it alleviates all of that. Plus the signatures I need. I need signatures on everything. I can send it by Adobe, whatever, but not everybody complies or does it on a timely basis. So if I have them sign everything and then they designate one person with me that, to get the ball rolling, then I can get going with everything. And it's a little smoother, right? That's like really important. Now, the only time you would owe money on a prepaid funeral is if you make changes to the original contract. Like, I want to add a limousine. I want to add something else. Then we're going to say, well, you have to pay for that. I want more flowers. Then you have to pay for that. We can't control that, So that's like really, really important stuff. But the fact that you are making these decisions under no stress, not overspending, really helps families who under stress say, I don't know what mom wanted, but we're going to give her the best. Whether we can afford it or not, we're going to spend money. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah. And plus the emotional, toll that
Emotional,
it takes.
exactly.
And, let's be honest, you usually have to make those decisions in a few days. So that adds even more pressure. What are we going to do? Well, we have to make a decision. Are we going to wake mom for 2 days? How's it going to go? If we do a cremation, are we going to do a service?
Right.
Yeah, there's so many variables there.
And
Why
I
not
need
have,
information. The
right?
information I need, sometimes the children don't know. Their grandparents were deceased before
Yeah.
they were ever born, or they're just not in their lives. And I need those parents' names and maiden names. There's so much that goes on a death certificate people don't realize. And that can be provided by you yourself. What
Hmm.
job do you want to list on your death certificate? Because I have to list a job. I have to list an employer, how long you worked there. I have to list your education. I have to list if you're a veteran and what years, what period you were in. Sometimes veterans never talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I hear it all the time. I didn't even know Dad was in the service. How come we didn't know? He didn't want anybody to know. He didn't want to ask. He wasn't proud of it. He wasn't whatever. And then there's
Wow.
all these entitlements they're going to miss, right? They're going to miss honor guards or free burial space or free markers, all this stuff. I need that discharge papers. We don't know where it is. I get a copy of that when you come and make your arrangements. You don't want an honor guard. Please don't present the flag. I'm not proud of it.
Wow. Didn't realize that you needed all that information. It's a big deal. And
It is. People don't realize it. They're like, can we do this in 15 minutes? I'm like, it's going to take about an hour. Do you have an hour's worth of time to go over this? Because I do want to get information about your whole life for your obituary, not the last 10 years. You did things that were important to you when you were young. Like, I played sports. I would like people to know I played sports. My friends would remember that and be like, I know her. But my children would be like, we didn't know mom played sports. She played sports. They know me as mom.
wow.
That's it, running around to their events, not mine. So we like to get an obituary that's going to be your whole life, not a piece of your life, right?
Even the documents alone, that would put me into freak mode right there, especially again, you have limited time. It's an emotional time. Now you're scrambling, going up in the attic, trying to, go through and maybe safe deposit box. Whoa. Okay.
And you can't get into a safe deposit box. If
Well, then
you
there.
sign that, the person's deceased, you can't go in with a death certificate and get anything, not even the deeds to the cemetery I need, because your person on air is deceased. So if you're a spouse, you could get in. If you're a child, you can't get in until you get a surrogate certificate saying who's in charge. Because what if there's cash and jewelry in there, or coin collections, or stamp collections, and you steal that? So someone has to enter with you. You have to prove you have the right to go in there. You're in charge of the will, and then they'll let you take that stuff out. So we say safe deposit boxes, don't put important papers we might need, because we need them and you don't have access to them.
Got to tell you, Jerry, I knew that pre-planning was a great idea. I knew that it honors the wishes of the person that will pass on. I knew that you lock in a rate. I didn't think about all the paperwork and all the information and all of that. That's huge,
Yeah,
huge. Wow.
yeah.
Mm. All right. Let's talk about some of the options, some of the options available that somebody might pick. Let's say, if and maybe both sides. If somebody's doing cremation, if they're doing a traditional burial.
So the least expensive is always a direct cremation. That means we transfer your loved one into our care. We put them in a minimum alternative container. In Jersey, we have to wait 24 hours in case somebody changes their mind. So then we transfer after 24 hours to the crematory, and then we go back and transfer you back into our care when that process is done. So in New Jersey, you can't own a crematory, right? They're all in cemeteries and very regulated. Some states, funeral homes, non-funeral people,
New
but you
York, New
do all
York is
that.
one of those states where
Yeah,
a
you do
funeral
all
home could
that
have their own.
fuzzy stuff happening. I got
Mm,
sand, I got concrete, I got potting soil.
mm, wow.
New Jersey's a little more regulated, and I don't mind that. Um, but you're going to get your cremains back. So the next one up is the direct cremation plus a gathering, and we call that a memorial gathering. And when we have a memorial gathering, the urn can or cannot be there. It's a few hours. And then you'll have everything that you would get, the memorial cards, a register book, life celebration items, everything that you want, flowers, all of that, maybe a service. So that would be the next step up. The next step up above that is I want a viewing before cremation, but I want to use a rental casket and invite clergy into the funeral home to do the service. Okay, so we'll do that next. That's the next step up. It's a little more expensive because now we're doing embalming, dressing, casketing, hairdressing. We're doing everything you would do, but we're going to the crematory instead of a burial, right?
Gotcha.
So that's the next step, is your most expensive, is we want a viewing, we own property, we're going to do church, we're going to go to the cemetery afterwards. So there's more stuff you have to buy. One, you can't rent a casket, obviously, you have to buy a casket. Majority of the cemeteries require a cement vault. Not all, but a lot of them do. And that's to keep the ground from caving in and the headstones from falling. So that's like a very large purchase. That's like a $2,000 purchase right there. And then opening that grave that you own still costs money. So that's going to cost anywhere from $850 to $1,500. So now you really took a big jump between casket and merchandise as to what this funeral is going to cost. And the same thing with a mausoleum. You're like, oh, well, maybe a mausoleum will be less. It's not. They require a mauso guard or a cryptotech, plus the lettering and stuff like that. So it's not less expensive to have a whole funeral and then go to a mausoleum. It's a teeny bit less. Not,
Yeah.
oh, I saved so much money.
And I would imagine, it's limited space in terms of a mausoleum. So, you're paying a premium for that. Um,
Well, yeah, cemeteries have figured out that mausoleum space going up per square foot is more profitable because I can get 6 or 8 in a row up as opposed to only 2 or 3 down.
Right.
So that's why they build mausoleums.
Misconceptions. Let's talk about those. A lot of people have, for example, if I pre-plan my funeral, it's bad luck, bad idea. Not true, obviously, right?
Yeah. Yes. So sometimes that's what people say. They're like, oh, that's bad luck. I'm wishing myself or my husband or somebody to, I don't want to do that. I want to wait. Again, emotional toll, then it's much better and relaxing to get it over with. You'll feel better. But just because you pre-plan doesn't mean the death is imminent. I have several reasons why you should pre-plan. Like, some people are qualifying for Medicaid or social services and they're going into a nursing home because their loved one can't take care of them anymore. Maybe they're violent. Maybe they have Alzheimer's, whatever. Or maybe they're going on hospice in an institution. They need to take care of it because if you don't, then who's going to dictate everything, right? I had a woman, she had lung cancer. They told her 6 months. Her name was Diane, lovely person. I know her so well. And she said, Jerry, I want to make my own funeral arrangements. I don't want my children to do this. And I said, all right, Diane, let's write down everything you want. And then she changed her life, what she was eating and doing and stuff like that. And she didn't die for like almost 10 years. It was like unbelievable. I think it was 7. It was like I would see her and she'd be like, I don't get rid of my prearrangements. I could die tomorrow. And we'd be like, nah, you're gonna stick around for a while. But it was a lung cancer. Like that's pretty much a death sentence. It was stage 4. And
Wow.
she came
Wow.
back from that. But what are you gonna, I'm glad for her.
Mm.
Right. And
But
the
you know
other
what?
thing
You
is
said
people,
the magic
I'm
words
sorry,
there.
go ahead.
The magic words. I don't want my kids to worry about it. So they already
Yes.
know that mom is in stage 4. It's emotionally draining at that time alone. And now, we got to plan her funeral. She's still here, but
Yeah.
we know it's more imminent than, let's say, parents who just say they're perfectly healthy, but hey, we're going to do this. We're going to pre-plan. Yeah, that's a deeper situation right there.
Yeah, so some people say, well, it's so expensive, but it's just going to keep going up. So you might as well just pay, now, today's dollars. It's just going to keep going up. And if you prepay and it goes down, no big deal. The money is issued to the estate. We don't keep the money if you spend less, unless you're on Medicaid. Then the state gets the money because they're paying for your nursing home, right? So that's the difference. Is it revocable or irrevocable for that situation? But some people say, I have life insurance, but there's no guarantee that the beneficiary will give it to us because they don't have to, and you can't force them. You can't say, I gave my child this life insurance policy. I told them it was for my funeral.
Mhm.
We ask for it and they say, no, my mother left that to me. Okay, how are we paying for the funeral? You have to make a decision because you cannot force them to use that life insurance. Or I have a CD in the bank. Again, we have no access to it and neither do your children. How are we getting that money? Somebody's got to lay out that money and then get reimbursed. So those are all great ideas. And you can even say, this is for Tom Smith to pay for my funeral, payable on death. They could go in and get the money, but there's no guarantee they're giving it to me. I can't force them.
While we're
Plain
talking
simple.
about the amount of money that it costs to pre-plan your funeral, you also have payment plans, right? We didn't talk about that.
Yes, we do. You could do payment plans, 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, depends on your age, what you'll be eligible for. But you could do it a certain amount of years and you could do it automatic withdrawal, credit card payment, whatever you want, which way you want to set it up. But you can do that. And then if you pass away and we put it in one of those policies and you live the first 2 years, you don't have to pay the balance. The insurance has to pay us the full amount.
Wow. I
It's
got to
an
tell you,
advantage.
Jerry, learned a lot today. Eye opener. It just for the information that's needed to get the death certificate. Pre-planning is obviously the way to go. If you can do it and make the plans, why wouldn't you? Why put
Right.
that burden on your family? And your wishes are honored. You have 2 locations. Where are they?
One is in Manchester, New Jersey. The other one is in Jackson, New Jersey. The one in Jackson also has a restaurant for repasts and an atrium for a cafe kind of thing during the viewing. Manchester is a little smaller. We built that over 20 years ago. Jackson's only open 3 years, so we had a little more insight into the changes and we built it more up to scale what people are expecting now.
Wow. You and your family, and keyword here is family. It's family owned.
Yes.
There's a lot of funeral homes these days that have been taken over by a few companies out there. And there's like 3 big ones, and it's a monopoly. You're probably not going to get that family personal touch that you are with your
I
homes.
live above the funeral home. I had so many times people call me at 11 o'clock at night and they're like, oh, I didn't know you were going to answer the phone. I just wanted directions. I'm like, no problem. I'll give you directions.
Right.
Oh, I thought I could leave a message. What's the message? Yeah, I answer the phone, not an answering service. My husband is the person next to me, usually getting out, if someone passes away at 2 a.m., he's going to put a suit on and go out and transfer your loved one into our care. And it's a nice comforting thought knowing they're in a building where somebody is actually in. It's not locked up for the day at 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock. And, it's
absolutely
by themselves.
And there's pride and you take it personally and it truly shows. And I love your transparency, Jerry. You really get, to the point and make it clear, because most of us just want to get this over with. Let's pre-plan. Here's my payment and here's everything you need. And now you can rest easily before you rest in peace. Yeah.
I run a lot of seminars too, encouraging people to come in, understand what's going on, give them a little food and so food for the stomach, food for thought, maybe you should consider doing this. Come on in, make an appointment. This is the basics and then you'll be fine, and they do, eventually come in a couple of weeks later and stuff like that. We get them.
Website is nice. OliverieFuneralHome.com, correct?
Correct.
And that's spelled Oliverie, funeralhome.com. Thank you so much for being here again today. What an eye opener, got to tell you. And all information that we really need to consider because it's a fact of life. And I appreciate you being here again.
All right, great. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.